A lot of those fans out there wearing free Scottie t-shirts couldn't help him there, so he was 4 over after 4. It is his first over par round of the year. 41 straight at par or better, and 39 of those were under par. Hats off and an ovation for Scottie Scheffler for what he's done, what he's dealt with. So, strokes gained tee to green, and that is something I promise you will not see very often. Losing almost 3 shots to the field. With more on Scottie, let's go down to Todd.
Well, of course, he shot that 66 after being arrested, booked, and charged on Friday. He told me, after I spoke with him after his round, that he was pretty stable emotionally last night. But this morning was a different story. I asked Scottie what he brought to the golf course today. He said, everything I could. My prep this morning was a little bit different than I imagined. And I said, well, what are you talking about? And he said, I talked to my lawyer on the phone, and that is Stephen Romines, a lawyer who he's hired locally, to try and process what really happened. I don't think it hit me, talking about the incident yesterday morning, until this morning, what actually transpired on Friday. He also said that yesterday was very chaotic, and it's all a big misunderstanding, but he did say, I did my best to fight today. Now, also adding to maybe his uncomfortableness on the golf course today is that he did not have his regular caddy, Ted Scott. Ted Scott flew home to Louisiana to be at his daughter's graduation. That was prearranged. He had his good friend Brad Payne on the bag, but Brad is not a professional caddy. Still, though, he was able to put this number together. He does have a lot of family support. He's been talking with his wife, Meredith, and one thing that has put a smile on his face, his interactions with his young son, his newborn son, just born last week, Bennett. Rich?
All right, Todd, fair to wonder if it all caught up with him, unflappable as he has been. Todd, thank you. What'd you think, Paul?
What did I think? I have a lot to say about that today. First of all, why is he talking to his lawyer in the 3rd round of a major championship? Could that not have waited until Monday morning? We gave a lot of credit to his team yesterday and how they rallied around him and how he was able to plug into that team and they protected him and he went out and played a great round. But for me, was it really necessary to speak to a lawyer? I don't know. Maybe there's legal reasons, but it seems a strange thing to do, and it certainly rocked him from what Todd is just after telling us. Secondly, we did say last night, both of us said last night that he's not out of the woods yet just because he had a good round yesterday with all the trauma that happened in such tragic circumstances yesterday. Was there going to be a legacy today? We did ask that question last night, and it's quite clear that obviously was the case. But the big factor as well, which we also got to talk about, is Ted Scott. And I've given Ted a lot of credit over the years here. Since he started caddying for him before the, around that Ryder Cup in Whistling Straits, this guy has just gone on a trajectory like this. And I really think that the role of Ted Scott has been huge. He's also a man of faith like Scottie. They've got a lot of similarities, a lot of experience, having won major championships with Bubba before he came in the bag with Scottie. And I think he's a huge part of the team, the very good team that Scottie has around him. But the problem is when you are very structured like a lot of these players are, and you're very organised and you have a routine, and then that is thrown into chaos by some big element of that being different, that creates it's easy for it to fall apart, and that's what I saw today. He wasn't poised, and this is nothing against his friend Brad, who was caddying for him. I think that any caddy, professional caddy, going on the bag there could have had I don't know if they could have steadied the ship with him. There's obviously a relationship with Ted Scott. I think he really missed Ted Scott today. And he also bogeyed all 4 par 3s today, remember, as well as the mistakes that he made that we just highlighted there. All 4 par 3s were mistakes today. So I think there's a lot to learn from Scottie. He's 8 shots off the lead now on a day of low scoring. He's not going to be a factor in terms of winning. I do expect him to kind of steady the ship a bit tomorrow with Ted's back and having another good round as they get back on the horse again in routine. But I'm sure there's a lot of lessons to be learned. But look, it is very, very difficult circumstances. We got to give him a break with all the stuff that went on yesterday, and particularly the tragicness of what happened and the fact that somebody lost their life here yesterday, and that he was part of the storyline around that.
Yeah, I mean, what a roller coaster, an emotional roller coaster. You think about the unbelievable high he would have come in here on, having, he and Meredith given birth to their first child, and the unimaginable low, emotional low of yesterday and chaos of yesterday, and then, just a little bit of a distraction, probably not having Ted Scott on the bag. They wouldn't have gone through the same routine. I think everything Paul just said, I agree with. You put all those things together, and it's a bit insurmountable, and it's understandable that he would have had a little bit of a low today. Not quite been as focused as he need to be. He said as much in his post-round remarks with Amanda Balionis.
His Louisville story will not end tomorrow. Unfortunately, we'll have to see how things shake out in terms of the legal process surrounding the case. 4 charges levied yesterday against Scottie Scheffler. Shockingly still.